Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 6. Before we get started, don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be the first to find out when I post these videos. All right, let's just jump in. This episode, listen, I have more of a synopsis of the couples for this episode because I think overall, in terms of what the couples did and how they engage in activities with each other and also just as couples, I think it was a nice flow. Obviously, if you watch the episode, then you know one of the things that was the biggest thing that got in the way, but I'll get into that. So let's just kick it off. I'll say one of the things that I do like that I think that they've changed this season is the amount of alone time that the couples are spending, even though they're in this group setting. Because back in the day, they used to do separate honeymoons. Each couple went somewhere else. And then they thought, okay, they're going through this very unique experience. Let's have them do it together. And so they had a lot of activities that were centered around the group dynamic on a honeymoon, and it felt less personal for each couple, and it felt like high drama, which the show still is. But I think now I've noticed on this honeymoon with this particular season, they only have like a few group activities, and they focus more on them doing activities alone. But they are still able to like pair up and say, hey, you know, I really connect with this couple, so we'll go and do something one-off. You know, the girls are together, the guys are together, but it just didn't feel like an overwhelming amount of group activities where we're not seeing the couples individually. So I like that because I feel like this is like the first time I really feel like they had the best of both worlds where they're able to do both. But I think they focused more on them having isolated couples time, which is really, really important, especially in this experience. So let's just jump in with Steve and Noi. So Steve and Noi, I think one of the big words in marriage and that they will experience very quickly is compromise. So they still have a very good dynamic to me. I still am quite hopeful for them. They get along well. They're physically attracted to each other. They have a good chemistry. You know, there's some things that we need to kind of put into play at some point, and that will come up. You know, Steve kind of being a little more rooted, and does he want to, you know, be a little more settled and get into a little more traditional space for her, considering this is like what she's looking for? Or is he going to just want to, you know, be a nomad and want her to join that adventure? We're gonna have to see some of that stuff because both are not gonna work. But I still like seeing them together. But they will really, really learn to compromise, because I kept hearing Steve say, you know, I want to do this adventure. And a lot of people say that because another couple said it too. I'm adventurous and I want to do this adventure, and I wish my wife would do that. And I wish, it's kind of like, here's the person who you've not known, but a person who's willing to kind of do some of what you're into. And really that's what it's about. I think when people first get married and they're very green in marriage, they think, oh, we have to do everything together. And I know that I post at my last review, I said, okay, they'll learn to do some things apart. And a lot of you guys commented about how you guys like solo trips, mommy time alone, a guy's trip, whatever. Like, as you become seasoned in marriage, you will learn that there are things that you'll do together and things that are perfectly fine doing alone, because your spouse is just not into it. And so there's the art of compromise. And, you know, hey, she was scared to float. She's scared to get into this body of water. This is not normally her thing, but she did it. It's a great experience for her and you, and it brought you guys closer together. But then there's some stuff that she's just not gonna do, and vice versa. There's some stuff that he's not gonna do. So I think like the little disappointment that I hear in Steve in terms of like, oh, I expected to do all these adventures with my wife. Well, you could have been matched with someone else who, let's say, is more adventurous than Noi, and she could have done all these things with you. Or there's maybe some things that you really saw you doing with your wife, and she'd be like, I'm not into that. Like, I'm into this. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's just, when you're new, when you're fresh into it, you harp on these things that are really minute in the big picture. And over time, if they learn the art of compromise and stuff that they can do together, then it won't be this big thing. because it really isn't at the end of the day. But I thought that scene in the water was fun with them. They're getting along very well. You know, their conversation at the table with the other couples in terms of the amount of kids that they want and joking back and forth. I like their disposition. So far, so good. And I also like that Noi was able to take the way that Steve presents is more palatable rather than be disappointed by it, that he is very logical and he's not just gonna jump in there with emotions, but it doesn't mean that they aren't there. That's great that they learn that so quickly about each other. That's great that she was able to accept that, because you know, I thought it was like 3 days in saying I love you or I'm falling in love with you. For me, I'm just like, okay, girl, relax. It's not even, you can't, I don't want to say you can't be, but like for me, I think that that's not true love. Okay, you met the person 3 days ago. It's not really true love. But you know, I'm glad that she's not harping on the fact that he didn't say I love you back or I'm falling in love with you back, that she's able to say, okay, let me see all the ways in which he is showing up, and he'll get there. Hopefully he gets there. So I like that they're growing together quite quickly. So far so good. We're still on the honeymoon though, right? So this is not even real life. But so far so good with Steve and Noi. Next we have Elijah and Katina. Okay, this is my wild card couple. I keep calling them the wild card couple. They are fun to watch, but in some cases they're fun to watch. I think they will be fun to watch, but Elijah needs to take it down a notch, like 10 notches. And here's the thing, I really looked at Elijah in this episode, and I thought, like, I don't even think he knows how to not be as intense as he is. Like, I feel like I was looking at him at that table when they were having the dinner, and I was like looking at him almost like all this energy is bubbling on the surface, and he doesn't quite know how to turn it down just a little bit, just turn the flames down. I think he's probably overwhelmed in himself, which is why he seems so almost agitated. Even if he's in a good mood, the energy is agitated because it is overwhelming. And he does not necessarily know how to do things to maybe like just cool it down a little bit, meditation or something, because it is overwhelming. But I don't think it's definitely not an act. It's really energetically who he is, but he is gonna have to figure it out, because that, like, bright flames burn fast, and that is going to be something that will for sure get in the way of his marriage. Elijah wanting to push Katina, you met her like 5 days ago. You should be trying to get to know who she is as a person, her likes, her dislikes, and not trying to challenge them just yet. Like, it's not your space to challenge them. The thing that these couples don't have, that traditional couples who meet, you know, and they get to know each other for a while have, is like the foundation that only comes through time and like true emotional connection. Y'all don't have that. So where my husband may push me, I've known him for a long time, sometimes I don't like it. It is what it is. I know that it is with my best interest in mind, but I also have known him long enough to where it's not gonna, I mean, yeah, it might agitate me in a particular moment, but it's not going to be something where I start questioning who he is and what this is about and if this is gonna work, because we have that emotional connection. We have a foundation that has been there for a long time. That has to be built first before you say that you're gonna challenge your spouse or push them or test them. To me, that feels more manipulative at this point. It feels very erratic. It feels very controlling, because who are you to do that? I don't even care that you're her husband. Like, you guys, this is a very unique situation, and therefore there needs to be a unique approach. And this is where, like, the experts need to kind of like interject, or make sure y'all are watching the footage and taking notes so you can circle back with them, because he needs to be sat down and told that these are the things that are going to get in the way of creating an actual connection, because it comes off too aggressive, it comes off too controlling, it comes off manipulative. Now you're playing games. Like, even at the gym, like, I wanted to just push her and see, so I was treating her. that's unnecessary. You're gonna get someone who already said a few episodes before that she has her walls up and they're gonna come down slowly, but they're up. I don't know you. Those behaviors are gonna keep those walls up because she's not gonna know how to read you, because she doesn't know if it's true to who you are or if you're playing a game. In terms of riding the horses, I thought that was really, really, like, it was, stupid is coming to mind because I haven't had my full cup of coffee yet. But it just really bothered me that he did that because, you know, clearly she's scared. You know, that's an activity that could have gone wrong. You never know. And he is not taking into account that his wife is not in a space of comfort right now. Your job is to protect, to do what you can do to make her feel safe. And he really presents like this alpha man, and I'm gonna do this as this man. However, he's missing the basics. And an alpha man doesn't have to lead by force and be so aggressive. Like, that's not leadership, that's control. And somebody is not going to deal a lot of people are not going to deal with that. Katina, she might let it go for a little bit, but she's going to hit a point of no return if he doesn't knock it off. And I like that she is willing to stand up for herself. I want her to do it a little bit more though. And we know she can do it, but you can see that she's uncomfortable, but his energy is so overwhelming that she kind of waits a little bit. It's probably like a few paces after she really feels a particular way before she says it. And I think with him, he's going to need strong boundaries right out the gate in order to not get to a point that there's a point of no return or it's some big explosion. She's gonna really have to set those boundaries. She did a pretty good job with that conversation, but I would like to see it earlier because I actually did that. I did that on my honeymoon. We did like a scenic horse ride around a mountain top. Listen, y'all, I'm afraid of animals and heights. I don't even know. You know, new marriage, you're like, sure, I'll do it. It was terrifying until we got to the water, and that was fun. But like the idea that somebody would try to, you know, trigger you in a space where you're already very fearful, that doesn't feel safe. And you need to be able to feel safe with your spouse. So he needs to get it together, but we'll see. I definitely think he genuinely wants to be there, but I think it's like the pomp and circumstance of what he thinks it's gonna be. And I think he's gonna have a rude awakening when he sees what it is, but we'll see. So that's Elijah and Katina. Next we have Lindsey and Mark. So Lindsey and Mark, to me, Lindsey was more palatable this episode, to be honest, because the last few episodes I was not feeling her. She was more palatable. I think she was more supportive this time with Mark and what's going on with his landlord, and his landlord is ridiculous. I don't even know what that's about. But I think that she showed that she's willing to get in there and be helpful and do what it takes to help him out of that situation, because now he has to go home and move out of that space. Like she seemed to be like a really good support system throughout that episode that was happening with all of that. It was interesting to watch Mark kind of say, well, I know we're married, but this is my issue. And the reality is it's both of you's issues. And it's important that he gets that. It's an adjustment though. When you've been doing things for so long, he's 38, you know, he's been doing things for so long. It's not, we think that when you get married, like everything naturally falls into place, even the idea of having somebody else there to help. But it is an adjustment to change your mind to like being independent versus interdependent, where you are able to like work with someone on your problems, because it feels very isolated. Like, I don't want to put my problems on this person, but it is both of your problems because you guys are now one unit. So I love that she jumped in there and said, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I think she showed a lot of growth, considering that she really cannot control her mouth a lot of the time. She showed a lot of growth in not responding to Alyssa at the table when, you know, she made a face during Alyssa speaking. She did better than me, because I would have said something. I I would have said something. But it for Lindsey, and as we've seen, she did great, and she was on the after show, and that it was funny to watch her say, "Listen, I was squeezing Mark's hand under the table. I ate something. I put something in my mouth, so I didn't say anything." It shows that she has gotten the message, at least for the moment. I mean, the honeymoon's almost over. I'm sure we'll see more from Lindsey in the way that she's been, but it was good to see her really like hold on to what she could have said. It was good to see Lindsey and Mark talk with Chris. That wasn't a fun situation for Chris, but they were there as this like unit, connected. So who knows? I mean, anything can happen. I mean, the hope is that they stay together and they actually like learn each other. Although the show doesn't have like a huge positive ratio of long-lasting couples, they do have a good solid handful of couples. So it's not to say it can't happen. We just don't know. So that is Lindsey and Mark. Next we have Jasmina and Michael. Jasmina and Michael are still struggling. They really are, because and once again, this is where, and I know they're on their honeymoons, but like as soon as they get home and they get moved in, the experts really need to come in and talk about some of the footage from the honeymoon, because I know there'll be more that comes up in moving in. But they really have to learn how to communicate. They need to figure out like what statements they can kind of use to help express to each other that they've heard what they've said, because a lot of times we'll be hearing but not actively hearing, and therefore if you say, well, what did I say, chances are it's not often exactly what I said, or the person can say, well, no, that's not what I meant. They need some tools that can start helping them, because they're kind of like, they have potential, but they're off to a tough start. One of the things that you guys mentioned that I forgot to mention last week is Jasmina wasn't as present when he was explaining his trauma, and I agreed with that, but I go off the dome, you guys, so I forgot to mention that, but I do want to mention that this week. Jasmina was not as present as she could have been when he was explaining all of his losses and why he responds in a particular way. Her response was, and I don't think she was trying to be rude, I think she's just like disconnected in a way where she doesn't really get it, and instead of like really taking that in and saying like, I understand how that could really get in the way of how you think, or that could maybe want to create this idea that you have to prepare for the worst. It was like, well, essentially she's like, well, you just got to be happy, be positive. I mean, not exactly those words, but it was very casual, like you just have to like kind of be fine with it, move on and be happy, and like loss after loss after loss, especially a significant loss. I believe he said his first loss was his brother when he was 6. That's very young. That's a very formative time frame. So that's trauma at the very beginning, and it stunts you in some ways. And so you start protecting yourself. Not that he has to go through life doing that all the time, but I don't think she took a beat to really understand and be present and empathize with him. It was just like, well, so I agree with that. Someone mentioned that and I wanted to touch on that. But I think we've seen kind of Michael's issues at this point. We know what they are. Where Jasmina is struggling and is going to get in the way, and maybe that's gotten in the way in past relationships, is she doesn't know how to like get out of her own way when she feels a particular way. At this point, the way she's acting is as if there's no room for improvement here. And I know she's trying, but she seems like dull. Like she just seems very dull. She seems kind of checked out. And if you, in marriage, you're going to have to do this. If you decide to put something to bed, you truly have to put it to bed. And if it's not put to bed, you have to say, I'm not truly over this. Let's talk about this so I can truly move past it. But you can't kind of pretend to move on with reservation, because you're not moving on. And then it shows. She's this stunning new bride, and she says she's over it, but she's not really acting like she's over it. Set the boundaries, have the conversation, talk about things that that's going to make it different the next go around. Next time, this is what I'm going to be accountable for doing. This is how I'm going to respond, and then move on. It's too early to get stuck in what you think he might do, or you heard this from his family and therefore finding ways in which it shows up every time, and therefore like presenting in a way that is very like empty or shut down. Like there's a lot of scenes where she is like, she's there, but she's like non-reactive, and then she'll say something, but it's like she's not really present and she's not really feeling him. So I don't think it was big enough, although we didn't see the conversation, but they did talk about it afterwards. I don't think it was big enough for it really to get in the way of her getting to know him. And that seems to be happening. So she's gonna have to like truly communicate differently and learn to like move on so that she doesn't get in her own way. Because part of having like a real in-person relationship, because she's not had one in person, all her relationships has been long distance, is getting through something and truly moving on and like continuing on. You don't just get on a path and you stop and you sit and you're like, I want to get there, but you're not willing to like move. You got to move on. So that is Jasmina and Michael. They did stuff together. They weren't exciting to watch this episode. You know, finally towards the end of the waterfall experience, they got it together a little bit, but it wasn't like, it could have been better. And I think this episode, I felt like that fell on her in terms of her not being ready. But sometimes it ain't that deep, because if you let everything be a thing, like a major thing, then you're just never gonna like blossom. The marriage will never blossom. Like you have to move on. And when you're used to being single and digging in your heels and saying love it or leave it, you don't know how to do that. But your spouse kind of can leave it. You know, your family and friends, they'll love it even if they can't stand it, but your spouse can leave it. So like if she wants this to work, there is some work on her end that she needs to do. So that's Jasmina and Michael. Last but not least, there's Alyssa and Chris. I have never seen someone so delusional in my life, not in my life. I mean, I'm a therapist, so I've seen it, but I've never seen someone so delusional on this show. Like I was trying to think of, as long as I've been watching the show, have I seen someone that out of touch with reality? And nothing comes to mind. If you guys have a close second, please let me know in the comments. I continue to be floored. I didn't think it could get worse, but it does. I just don't understand what's happening. I don't get why she's still on the show if she's so adamant to do things separately. I don't know if it's because he doesn't want to call it quits first, because there is a penalty. You know, this is a show, there are contracts. You know, if you leave, there's penalties to pay and things like that. I think that Alyssa is just trying to kind of enjoy a vacation. I thought it was hilarious when Elijah Wan was like, what is it, like 60 in Boston? Like, of course she's not gonna fly, because her thing was, I could have left. I had the opportunity to leave yesterday. I thought most people pegged it. All of them pegged it. Lindsey pegged it, Elijah Wan, Katina, they all pegged that. Listen, Mark as well, she's not here for the right reasons, and she's just kind of enjoying things. Production can do a lot in terms of the way that you present, but they can't do everything. Like they can't, there's some things that are said, and if they're said, it's because you said it. It's not production all the time. And I love that they're doing a lot of this background, like B footage almost, where it's like not true filming, but the cameras are on. It's like, this is you know, someone who yells about being such a nice person all the time. It's not representative of a nice person at all. She continues to be incredibly pathetic, and she hits new lows every week. Like she's talented in the ways that she hits new lows. If you don't want to be there, just don't be there. Hey, this is not for me. I don't want to be there. You're not really committed, because true commitment is being committed to what you said you would do long after the feelings, the excitement, the positive association of what you committed to are gone. Okay, that is marriage. So even committing to the process, you may not feel like it, but you need to do your best to follow through, unless you're in danger or something like that, to make sure that you do what you said you were going to do and give it a chance. I just wish that I really hate that she took the place of someone else who would have given this a shot to see what's happening. And she really took the opportunity from Chris. She keeps saying she didn't get what she want, but honestly, Chris really lost here. Chris got a lemon. He really, really did. And I really wish he was just a little more reflective, or just shared a little bit of more of how he's not getting what he wants, because she really is sitting so high here. She's in this space where she is so much greater than, and he's being so respectful, and he doesn't have to be nasty, but he can say, listen, I didn't get what I wanted either. This is not what I signed up for. Like, but it's constantly coming from her in terms of how wronged she has been. And I don't think it's fair. I think there's a way for you to say, this is, you know what, this is, just be accountable, be an adult. This is not gonna work for me. I don't think I can do it. You know, I'm going to be accountable and saying that I can't do this anymore. And I wish him well. It's just to treat the person so poorly, to say, I hate him on camera, to barely want to sign your marriage your marriage contract, which this came out in the after show, to have a producer sit between the two of you guys on a plane. Like, she's giving me like second grade, he has cooties, you know, I don't touch me, you know. It doesn't have to be all that. For you to be a nice person, hey, you know what, I'm so sorry that I took this opportunity from you, but I can't do this, or this is beyond. Even it would still be pathetic otherwise, because you going into this, you'd have to know what would I do if I was not attracted to this person? Would I be able to do it or not? Like, that should have been a question she asked herself before they matched her. When she says to the girls, hey, I feel like they didn't give me what I asked for. Well, you've watched the show. You know the process. You should have asked yourself long before they matched you, how would I be if they gave me someone that I wasn't attracted to, or if I felt like at the beginning it wasn't going to work. If you knew that you were someone who couldn't stick around, then you shouldn't have signed up for it. You shouldn't have accepted it. So Alyssa, I can't stay on much longer, because there isn't much to say about her that just doesn't get nasty, because that's just the way that she shows up. She shows up really nasty. She's a very victimized person. I'm sure that this shows up in other areas of her life, because how you do some things is how you do all things. You think you'll be better in other spaces, but you're not necessarily that, because you're true to who you are. And there's a complete lack of accountability. There's a complete lack of actually wanting to sit in what's uncomfortable and just be honest and say what you need to say. There's a lot of avoidance. The moment she's uncomfortable, she walks away. These are many reasons as to why she is not in a relationship in real life. And it sucks to watch. It's you know, like she's gaslighting a lot, you know. I liked when Chris's posture started to feel a little more self-aware and a little more sure in, listen, this is not going to happen. So just say it. Or what are you trying to do? Like, you're seeing him start to get to a point where he's not just taking all these hits, but I wish he would just be more direct. I don't know if it's a contract thing where it's like, hey, I don't want to pull out because I don't want to be responsible for it. But it is tough to watch. There's no accountability. And when somebody does so much obviously wrong, it is really hard to watch when they're pointing the finger at everyone but themselves. That's why I give Lindsey kudos at that table when, you know, Alyssa said something and Lindsey kind of made the face that we probably all made. And she said like something to Lindsey. And that's when I would have said, that's probably when I would have gone off on her, because you're like wasting everyone's time here. Her focus is all about other people. I love that the producer said this is not single at first sight. It's married at first sight. All these things are about hanging out with the girls and hanging out with the group. It's like she wants to move in part of the time to still have the experience. Like, girl, it's not sorority at first sight. Still have the experience. The experience is the marriage. Marriage is the nucleus of this experience. Therefore, if you're not married, she blows my mind. It's like, hey, all of my friends are doing a couples retreat. Me and my man break up before the retreat, but I already said I'm coming, got my lodging and everything. I'm gonna come and experience it with you guys. The cost of admission is your man. Like, if you're done with him, you cannot sit with us. That's just what it is, just for this particular experience. If you connect with these ladies, do it on some other time. So I thought even that, sharing the apartment and getting so angry, she probably doesn't get told no a lot, because getting so angry that she can't stay in the apartment, that he would have the audacity to think that, hey, I'm gonna follow through with this process and I'm gonna move in, and she's so disgusted by him that she can't move in with him, and she's not comfortable with doing all these things. Like, when she didn't get her way about that, when it seemed like he was just gonna move into the apartment and she wasn't going to, and she had no choice, that's when she got really nasty. I mean, she's been nasty, but it got even more nasty because of the lack of the ability to control and do what she wants and what she's comfortable with. They need to kick her off, like, because I don't want to see her anymore. I think that, you know, he got the short end of the stick. She thinks she's greater than she is, and she's not. And it's a waste of time. It's like you think, how could we have weeded her out? But, you know, people can present very well, and that's the thing. We can't always blame it on the experts. People can say exactly what they need to say and present in a particular way, and there's always that risk. So I don't know. I don't think we'll see much more of them if it goes like this, because there just won't be that. And I think production's really annoyed with her too. So I don't foresee seeing them long term, but we will see. I mean, if anything, if it's about ratings, they got them with this girl. All right. That's it for this week, guys. As always, don't forget to click the subscribe button and comment and share. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode. I'm going to bring my husband on very soon so he can give you his perspective on the show. And yeah, that's it. All right, everyone, have a great weekend.